So let's do that. So hello, my name is Joe Jones. I am the Principal Sustainability Consultant here at SustainIt. I've been with the company now for longer than I care to admit. I've been with us now for, must be coming on 7 years now. And I tend to get involved with our clients when we start talking about the strategy of sustainability data, which is all good fun. My colleague on the call with me is Roy Bidder, who will probably say hello any minute now and introduce himself as well.
Yeah, hello everybody. My name's Roy. I am the service delivery and project manager here at SustainIt. I haven't been here as long as Joe. It's been approximately 2 years, and I manage the service delivery and also all of our kind of internal and external projects. So yeah, back to you, Joe.
Thank you very much. So the first thing we need to talk about is just who are SustainIt, because I think that kind of goes to the core of why we're all here today. So we were doing some talking about this, and this is our 10th year as a business. In December it will be our 10th birthday party. We are a sustainability data consultancy. That's how we describe ourselves. That's certainly how a lot of our partners describe us too. We help our clients understand their sustainability data, and that really does stretch the entire spectrum, from the initial materiality studies of, well, okay, how do we start going with ambition and all those kind of things, right the way through to helping some of our clients, and obviously some of our logos are on the slide, you can see, helping those clients manage large enterprise level sustainability, EHS and CSR data solutions, helping them capture data from hundreds and hundreds of facilities across hundreds and hundreds of countries with thousands and thousands of users. So making data not just on energy expenditure or on waste or on fuel usage, but also on things like health and safety, on good practices, on free association. It is the whole spectrum of sustainability data across the whole globe. And we're very proud of the work we do, and we're very, very proud of the impact we have with our clients. But there is one part of that we've always thought we can do more with, and that's the software selection process. And we'll talk, as the subject suggests, quite a lot today about how you go about looking for a suitable sustainability CSR EHS software solution. There's obviously a large piece of that is about analysis. It's about understanding what you need. And unsurprisingly for us, we've always helped our clients. I think one of the most recent examples is on there as a client, and we've helped our clients build those requirement sets, help them go out to market and find the right software and help them implement that. But we also recognize that for some people out there, either you're not ready to bring in a consultant and spend the days required to do that, or there just isn't the budget available to bring in a consultant to spend the days to do that. And we didn't want either of those scenarios to prevent people from going out and finding an option in terms of sustainability software. And we looked for a solution. There wasn't one, and so we decided it was time that there was one. And that's really what GoMarketWise is about. So I'll click over because that's the next slide. And so GoMarketWise is exactly that. It is designed to provide you with a simple to use, independent and zero cost way of understanding what kind of options are out there when it comes to sustainability software. And later on we'll show you more about GoMarketWise. We will, of course, over the course of the next probably about 40 minutes talk more about GoMarketWise, but we're very proud of what we've done. We want to show you, and hopefully you love it too. So what are we going to talk about today? So we want to talk about how you find the right solution. Obviously GoMarketWise will feature in that, and obviously we'll talk about that, but we also want to give you some advice that will help you understand these are the things to do when you start thinking, okay, are we ready for a software? We'll talk about what you need. I love alliteration, so data sets, dashboards and reports. It's just about defining requirements. We'll get to that. We'll talk about budgeting and how to avoid expensive mistakes, because we live in a world where budgets are pretty important to everybody. And then finally, I will hand over to Roy, who will give you a brief demonstration of just how GoMarketWise works. You'll see it in action, you'll see it turn live results, and after that we will have some time for questions. This is worth mentioning now. You will have within your GoToMeeting toolbar a chat function. Any questions you have, please fire them in there. We won't stop as we go to answer them, but we will have time at the end to go back and to answer those questions. So that's where they go. So that's what's being covered. That's how we're doing it. I think there's no excuse now but to start. So I'm a big fan of Lego, and so some of the slides end up having that look to them. But this is an important point. 15% of software implementations are abandoned shortly after implementation. It's not just CSR software, this is software implementations as a whole, but it's an interesting number because it highlights for me just how important it is to know what you're getting into. Is the software doing what you need it to do? Are you defining the requirements correctly? So the biggest way to fix this problem, or to not be part of the 15%, is to make sure that you have all your ducks in a row, that you know all the variables before you start. So, is your process fit for purpose? I think one of the first things to say when we start talking to people about sustainability data and what they're doing is to actually get them to talk about what they're doing at the moment, because that gives a very good indication as to how well things are working. So, are you able to collect the data you need? I think there's an interesting point here, which is that quite often, in my experience, you'll find that companies are collecting the data that's needed, but it's not in the right format, or it's not part of sustainability data, in inverted commas, and so it's not really made available. Can you generate the reports you need for the audience? There is this thing that happens with, I suppose, big data, which is that people gather more and more information based around the idea that because they have more data, then they'll be able to do more with it. But they spend so much time gathering that data, it becomes too much, and it doesn't ever get used. I think one of the great strengths of switching from Excel or from any other spreadsheets, if you're using something like just OpenOffice or Lotus Notes, is it gives you the opportunity to establish data as a two-way flow, so that you can push reports back to the audiences that will need them in the format they need. There is, however, the important thing to point out, there are companies out there for whom Excel will work, but it does have its limitations, and it's important to recognize those limitations. And I think it's when you start to realize those, is when you start to realize it's time to move to a software system. So Excel will get you so far, but as you start to look at having hundreds of data points, as you start to look at having thousands of users across the world, then you start to experience problems with Excel. As well, it doesn't give you the data ownership ability that systems will. So you can't collect data, move data in the same way. So something to think about. And regulations and changes to frameworks. I mean, we've just gone through with some of our clients some of the changes to how Scope 2 emissions are reported. Having the flexibility to adapt to those changes is something that's built into systems that just is these days. In terms of modern sustainability software, they have that flexibility built in. They will allow you to do that. It gives you that flexibility. I think the last point is just something, it's a good question to ask. I know of sustainability managers out there who spend a third of their working lives trying to collect data. I know of very few sustainability managers who were employed because they're experts in Excel or in getting people to fill out Excel or fill out data forms. It's not part of the role. It shouldn't be part of the role. It should be about using that information. You should always own your data. You shouldn't let it be the other way around. So, planning. Bit of a lazy alliteration this time. So, this is where we start to get to think about what you're going to need your system to do. Think about what kind of data you'll need to include, and be honest about it as well. I know of companies where we've gone in, and I know of companies where other people have gone in and talked to them and said, well, you're collecting this information. Why are you doing that? And the answer is, oh, because we always have. And that's never the answer you want. Include the data that's going to be useful for you. Make sure that when you build the data map, you build the data map that is relevant, that isn't just including things because, well, it's been there for years. This is an opportunity to define exactly what data is going in, how it's going in, and how useful it's going to be. And so it's important to make sure that it works. As well, you have to make sure that it aligns with the business process. If you're going to start saying, oh, well, we want this data in the system, but there is no process to collect that data or to manage it, then you're creating a system that is designed to collect inaccurate and unuseful data. Make sure that you're aligned with the business processes, that you're able to get the information you need. This one's an important one, I think. Make sure that you use the long-term business strategy to know where you're going. So when you implement a system, when you decide what kind of software you're going to want, then you are making that decision based on a fixed point in time. Once that decision is made, that fixed point of time is in the past, and your time moves forward. This all gets a bit kind of string theory in places. I apologize. What you need to make sure is that your requirements for the system and the system that you've chosen are heading in the same direction with your business strategy, so that when 4 years down the line you say, oh well, look, our business strategy for sustainability has been this and it's been this, but now we want to gather data on free association and working environment laws. You know that the system and the software house who developed that system have been going in the same direction. So when you talk to them about these things, they go, oh yeah, well, we've done that because we knew it was part of your plan, it's part of our plan. Here it is. It's all a new module. If those two things aren't aligned, if the strategy for the system isn't aligned with the strategy for the company, then when it comes time for you to say, oh, well, we want this bit now, you will find that instead of the system still being able to cover your functionality, it won't. And then you're at the point where either you have an extra system for this part, or it's an entire new system and you're back to square one. It's an important step. The last one, though, for me, is the most vital, and this is the easiest way to change the success of a sustainability software implementation. Include the stakeholders. And we say here, from the guys who are going to be entering data at a factory level or in an office or in a sales facility somewhere, who knows where, right the way through to the board, they are all going to be stakeholders of your system. They're all going to have to use it. They're all going to be impacted by it, whether it's them viewing reports or them having to log on to report their energy use or the number of accidents. It's going to have an impact on it. They have to be involved in the project. If you do that, then there's a much greater chance of success. One of the biggest problems is, and it says it here, one of the biggest problems is if users don't see a value in the system. They don't care about the system. They won't trust the data going in. They won't trust the data coming out. And both of those things will impact on how well the system works. Data going in, data going out is the key thing that the system does. If users don't trust either of those things, then they don't trust the system, they won't use it, and it will cause you problems from the implementation onwards. It's an easy way to make sure the system works well. So when we talk about things to consider moving forwards, things to consider when you start to plan, questions that you will need to answer, and to be honest, quite honestly answer, when it comes to knowing what you need a system to do. Here's some things to think about. We have clients who have Excel uploads, who have smart meter integration so that thousands and thousands of data points are entered on an hourly basis. And we have clients who enter data annually in mass. Again, it has to align with the business process. It has to align with how you're going to be able to get your users to enter that data. Think about it and know the answers to these questions, because they're going to be vital when it comes to choosing the right software for you. It's also important to know how the data is going to have to come out. There will have to be board reports, there'll have to be probably reports at a business level at some point, but there's also going to be standards and regulatory requirements you need to stick to. Things like the Dow Jones Sustainability Index, the Carbon Disclosure Project, the GRI reporting. If you know the standards that you need to report to, then not only do you know what indicator structure you need, but you can also look for software vendors who have this functionality built in, and a lot of them do now. They'll quite happily invest the money to have that relationship with those reporting frameworks, so that the system will do an awful lot of the hard work for you. Again, it's all about making your life easier. Consider as well where our data is going to come from. Things like headcount and turnover and square footage of facilities will all exist in other systems, be it HR or health and safety. If they're already in place, if the data is already there, if the data is already robust and usable, then why would you ask someone to enter it twice? System integration is a great way of making a launch of a software more seamless and less painful for those who have to submit data. So think about where you can pull the data from, and make sure you know how you're going to report it. As I said earlier, there's always a problem built into big data, that it becomes a one-way flow. The people submit data to a faceless group function somewhere who probably look at the data but then never tell them what they've done with the data. It doesn't build engagement with the information. It doesn't demonstrate the value of the system, and it does create a detachment from that data. If people can see the data, if they can have access to their own reports, if they can see the impact that the changes they have can have on the data and on the company as a whole, if they can feel that them submitting the data is a part of something that is moving the company forward, it has a huge impact. Giving access to good dashboards and strong reporting functionality is one of the biggest wins that a CSR software will give you. Make sure you use it across the organization. Don't just send reports up to the board. Send them everywhere, and send them in a way that is really going to engage people. And then what auditing functionality is required? I mean, this is, again, it goes to one of the strengths of a system, the ability to have detailed and granular data ownership, so that if data fluctuates by more than a certain percentage, it's flagged and someone has to explain it, and there has to be evidence given. If data is out of year-on-year trending, then it's flagged, it has to be analyzed, and it has to be checked off by somebody else within the value chain. All of this functionality can really help you make sure that not only is the data going in on time, it's going in right first time, because people know there's an ownership chain and they are responsible for the numbers they give. It's a great way, again, of getting the data in, getting it right, getting it usable as quickly as possible. So when we talked about this earlier on today, I mentioned that I think this is probably both the most boring slides, because it talks about budget, but also it's probably the most important slide because it talks about budget. The first statement is very obvious. You're going to understand, you're going to have a budget, you're going to have to set it. It varies enormously in terms of software systems. There are options out there that are a few £1,000s. There are options out there that are tens of thousands of pounds up. I know that some of our software technical partners implement systems that are in the hundreds of thousands of pounds bracket. So the range is there. Don't think that just because your company is this size, there isn't a solution. There will always be a solution. There are so many factors out there when it comes to budgeting for software. If you know your approximate first year budget, then there will be something out there that matches, and that's a big part of what GoMarketWise aims to demonstrate. But it's also important to think about how pricing works. So I can't think of many softwares out there that you buy as a one-off cost anymore. Most of them now you will pay for licensing. Additionally, there'll be implementation fees. You'll want to pay for the training of users. For a lot of systems which are software as a service, there's also hosting fees. So all of these things are part of that first year budget. You have to bear them all in mind. So it's something to remember, and it's something I'm sure that we'll talk about a little when we demonstrate GoMarketWise, is that that first year cost is very rarely just the cost of the number of users. So something to consider. I think another one which is really vital is to remember that implementing a software is a collaborative process. It's not a case of you sign the contract, say, right, brilliant, thank you. We'll see you in 2 months when the system is built. You will have to be involved along that way. If a software implementation plan says that it's going to take 15 days of effort from this vendor, then at the very least I would recommend you put down 15 days of time in your calendar for that period, because you're going to be involved too. Obviously, again, it comes down to building the team internally, so you've got the stakeholders there to help you with that process. As well, it can be about bringing in the right kind of sustainability data consultancy to help with that process. But the effort isn't solely on the software vendor. You need to make sure you're involved. And points like this one always make me smile, because I realize I am an interesting person to give this advice. But don't be a magpie when it comes to added functionality. I say this because I am definitely a magpie in most aspects of my life. If the system offers Facebook integration for an additional fee, then don't buy it unless you're Facebook, would be my advice. If the system offers you the opportunity to overlay all incidents using a Google Maps API, then don't use it, and don't buy functionality that you don't need. There's an awful lot out there, and the spectrum of what sustainability software can do is growing on an almost daily basis. The functionality is very powerful. They can all do an awful lot, and they're all doing more on it very quickly. But right at the start of this, if you follow this idea, then you will have defined exactly what you want the software to do and exactly how you want it to do it. That's the functionality you should be paying for. The other stuff you shouldn't be paying for. And this goes straight into this slide, which is this. Half of all software functionality is not actually being used. Don't pay for things you don't need. It's the easiest way for you to save money on an implementation is for you not to buy the things you think, well, we might use that 2 years down the line. Don't do it. If only because of the modular nature of these kind of softwares, 2 years down the line, you can add that module so that then if you're going to use it, you can. But don't pay for it for 2 years when you're not going to use it. There we go. So how does GoMarketWise help? As I said at the start, we're very proud of what we've done with GoMarketWise, because we've created what we think is a very powerful, independent comparison utility. We can compare different softwares from across the market, and to be honest as well, across the globe, in a way that gives you a clear idea of what are the core functionalities of this system. How does this align with the size of the company, the budget we have, and what we want to do? We've worked very hard on the scoring matrix, in some cases very, very hard. We've worked to make sure that the questions we ask are as simple as possible, but give us the most insight possible, so that just by answering a few simple questions, we get to know the feel of your organization and what you want to be able to do. It also streamlines the entire process. You don't have to go to the individual vendors, start a relationship with them, say, well, I'd like to have a look at the system. You just click on the request a demo button. Not only will we, for no charge at all, arrange the demos, we'll also help with, these are the things to think about. These are the questions we think you should be asking. These are the questions we think you should have answers for before we do the demo. We will be there to help you for no charge at all during that demonstration process. And we'll help you get realistic quotes. We know how these software vendors price things, so we can talk to them about how your requirements translate into a quote. we can help through that process. So what options are there? And I think it's important to highlight that this is very much the first wave of software vendors that are in our GoMarketWise app. The next wave is coming very quickly behind, and so it's going to keep growing and growing and growing. But these are the first 13 vendors that we've got in. It is a growing app. As I said, over the next month it's going to grow even more. But we've got a good selection out there from industry leaders that deal in enterprise solutions, right down to guys who cover the polar opposite of that, and it gives us a good spread. So I'm really done now, and I'm going to hand you over to my colleague Roy very soon, but I wanted to leave you with just 3 pieces of advice. So very simple. Once you've defined your requirements, stick to them. Don't add things in on a whim. Spend the time to understand what you need the software to do. Spend the time to understand what you will need the software to do going forwards, and that's your requirement set. Don't get distracted by shiny things. Don't become a magpie. It doesn't help with software implementations. When it comes to demonstrations, when it comes to looking at software, remember that screenshots and a live demonstration are not the same thing. It's important to remember that. I have seen software demonstrations where phrases like, well, it will, well, it can. These aren't the reassuring phrases you want to hear. If you understand your specifications, if you spend the time to define those specifications, then it's reasonable to expect software vendors to show you your system doing those things. And so that's why there's no substitute for actually seeing the software do it. And lastly, if you hear the word custom development, the list of softwares out there is significant. It's growing. The list of functionality that those softwares have is growing. If you understand what you want, then right at software selection, you should be able to find the software that does those things for you. If it needs bespoke development, I would be incredibly wary, because it will add costs and it will reduce flexibility. If, for example, you spend however many thousands of pounds developing a custom widget that will allow you to report in a specific way, then that's fine. But if that requirement changes, then you'll need to go back to that developer. Hopefully that developer is still at the company. He might not be. He might now be with a different company. He might have left entirely and decided to become a fruit farmer. If any of these things happen, then you are back to stage 1, and the software will have to be completely redeveloped again for the same cost as you did for the first time or more. Don't get something custom developed. Get it built to your specifications with functionality that exists within the system. Configuration is fine. Custom development is not. That is the end of my thoughts on this one. I am going to pass you over to my lovely colleague Roy, who will, I believe, give you a demonstration of GoMarketWise in action.
Great, thank you very much, Joe, and hopefully everybody can hear me. Joe, if you can make me presenter, I will share my screen with everybody. Excellent. So the screen that you can see here is the landing page for GoMarketWise, and there's a bit of information here about what GoMarketWise is, but what I want to show you is the actual journey here. So if I click on Get Started. So at the top of the page here, you can see that, sorry Joe, would you be able to mute your microphone? Thank you, perfect. So at the top of the page you have the header links, and I'll just walk you through those. I won't click on them and go into too much detail, but if there is a colleague or you have somebody that you know that might benefit from GoMarketWise, then you can click on Refer Us, and you can refer them to us, and we will get in touch. The glossary link is purely designed to help you kind of understand any key terms within the app that you might not understand. The About Us link gives you some more information about GoMarketWise. The Contact Us bit does what it says on the tin, and we've also created a blog here as well, which is worth having a look at. Below that you've got the the navigation bar, and this shows you your progress and will allow you to go back to a section should you have missed some information, or if you want to kind of revisit your answers. Again here, a little bit about GoMarketWise, but the first bit of the process is about you. So I'll go down to the modular selection. So these are 5 modules: responsible business environment, health and safety, risk and compliance, and supply chain. There are lots of software out there, and they refer to these areas or modules in different ways. We have decided on these 5. We feel that these kind of encompass everything that we have come across, and certainly that is out there. If you hover over one of the buttons, the information bar on the right-hand side will come up, and that will give you a little bit of information about what we mean by responsible business or environment. So for the purposes of this demonstration, I'm going to imagine that I'm an end user working for an imaginary company. So I want responsible business, environment, health and safety, and risk and compliance. If you want to select all of them, instead of going through and selecting all of them, you can click this button here. So moving on, the next bit, we ask for your name and your email address. So if my name is Test, my email address is test@test.com. Then we require you to tick on this box here to confirm that you agree to the terms and conditions of the app. I won't go in and show you those now, but yeah, before you click on this, it might be worth having a look. And yeah, once you've done that, you can click the next button here, or we have these speech bubbles here that kind of guide you through the app. So you can click on these speech bubbles if you like. So the next part of GoMarketWise is about software requirements. So this is about your current setup, your budget, and also your kind of general requirements for a new software solution. So again, I'm an end user, so I am working for an imaginary company. Within my company, we don't collect and report on any data, so I'm going to click here. It's also worth bearing in mind, like with the first page that I showed you, that you do have these information buttons. So if you click here, we've designed these just to give you a little bit of information about how to answer the question should you become confused or get stuck. So the next bit is about end users, so how many people are going to be using the system. For the purposes of this demo, I'm going to choose 51 to 500. And then the next question is about sites. So how many factories do you have? How many offices do you have? Or how many sites do you work from? So I'm going to click 51 to 500 again. The next question is about budget, and going back to what Joe said about budget, although it might be a kind of dull element of software selection, it is one of the most important. So there are many factors to consider when you're budgeting for a piece of software, and I know that Joe covered them earlier, but here we ask you to give an approximate budget for the first year software licensing and implementation. And there's a bit of information here which kind of covers what I've just said. So I'm going to select or leave it as pounds here, but we do offer the option of selecting different currencies. There are softwares from all over the globe that are participating within the app that quote in other currencies. So we've got US dollars, euros, and Australian dollars here, but I'm going to leave it as pounds. And the budget, we've divided it into 6 bands. So I'm going to select the third band. Next is about whether you need the system to interface with other business software. Do you need it to interface with smart meters, any other software that you have, whether that be SAP or anything else that maybe you have that's bespoke. So I'm going to say yes, that I do want it to interface. The next question is about ISO management. So do I need the system to support ISO management, whether that be 9001, 14001, 20001, but I'm going to say yes here. And yeah, this question is about whether you need it to integrate with your website or your internet. Do you need to publish any information automatically on your internet? Do you have an internal company dashboard that you need it to integrate with? So I'm going to click yes here. I think it's important to note at this point that you do need to make sure that all of the questions are answered. And if you're not sure about any of the questions and you've clicked here and you've had a look at the glossary, or you just don't know, then you can click on the not sure button. But I am sure, so I'm going to click next. The next bit is around, and Joe did touch on this actually, so the data that's going in, what you want to see on your dashboards, and also what you want to see within your reports. And also features and kind of general functionality that's part of the software that's important to you. So I'm going to select automated alerts and notifications, comparison against benchmark values, and data estimation tools. Again, there is a not sure option here, but you can select as many as you like. The next one is around data input. So for data input, I want to be able to create action plans and reminders. I want to import data via CSV, and I want to be able to upload documents and manage my documents within the software. The next question is about dashboard functionality. So what's important to you within your dashboard, and if I say I want to bespoke dashboards to show different information, and also dashboard exports as well. And the next question is about reports. So I want automatic reports that I can schedule, and I want to be able to create bespoke reports as well. So once you're happy with everything here, if you click next, it then takes you to the modular questions. So the modules that I selected at the start, this is where we ask you questions around those particular modules. And again, we've got a little bit of information here regarding what we mean by responsible business, which replaces the information button, which is here on the rest of the questions. So under responsible business, I want to track my corporate community involvement and my charitable giving, and also employee engagement and behavioral change. So if I click next, I can go to the next module, which is in environmental. Again, it's the same as responsible business, so a bit of information here. But for environmental, or for this module, I want to collect data, or air quality data, waste, and water. Like I said, if at any point you do want to go back, you can click on the navigation bar up here, or there is a back button here as well, so you can use either of those, but I'm happy with what I've selected here, so I'm going to click next. And then it takes me to health and safety, and I won't go through it all again, but I'm going to select chemical inventory, hazard identification and assessment, and hazardous waste tracking and reporting. And for risk and compliance, which I believe is the last module that I selected, business continuity planning, compliance management, and also audit management as well. So that's all of the questions that we ask within the app, and here is a chance for you to confirm your email address. And the reason why we ask you to confirm your email address here is because we send you a copy of your results. So once you're happy with your email address, if you click on next, it takes you to the results page. So this is the results page. Your results are ranked according to how well the software solutions that that are within the app meet your requirements. The closest matches, so there are two tables, closest matches and other software that you may want to consider. The closest matches are those that are within your budget and cover some or all of the areas that you requested, and the results for the other software that you might want to consider are those outside of your budget and those that might not meet all of your requirements. If at this point you feel like maybe that you missed something, again, we offer you the opportunity to go back and review your answers by clicking on this link here, or you can click this link and start the whole process again. And we've got a link to our telephone number here via Skype if you have that, in case you want to discuss some of your results with us. So if I move down to the results table, so again, closest matches are those that are within your budget and cover some or all of the areas that you selected. So you've got a list of software providers here, and if I start at the left-hand side of the screen, so if I click on this arrow here, it provides some information regarding the head office location of the software provider, and also the data center location. And they can, or often there might be one or more data center locations. And if I click that again, it disappears. So here you've got the overall match, and this score is a combination of the module scores and the scores from the general question set at the beginning of the app. Then you have cost bands, and there are, as I said, there are 6 bands, so you can see that there are six pound signs here. I selected the third band, so the results will therefore show me software that meets my requirements and falls within that band. So that will either be or band 3, anything that's band 3 and below. Here you can see all of the modules that I could have selected at the start, and the ones here are the ones that I selected, and you can see how well this particular software provider meets my requirements within each of those modules, and so on for the rest of them. This here, supply chain, so I didn't select supply chain, although we've decided to include it in the table, even if it's not required, just to let you know whether the software provider offers that particular module. So if you decide going forward that actually, well, in this case, supply chain would be useful, you can see that they offer it. So, and there's a key here which explains these ticks and crosses, if there are any. So there's one here, but I'll just explain to you this table here. So these are other software that you might want to consider that again might be out of your budget or might not meet your requirements fully, and it's the same with those. So they drop down here, and everything is the same along here. Okay, so before I get to the request demo part, which is I think Joe kind of touched on earlier, we do offer you the ability to give us feedback. So you can rate us out of 5 stars and then leave some feedback here and then submit it. So the request demo function, if, say for example, I look at this and I say, actually, you know, I'm really interested in having a look at Ecometrica and iSustain or any of these software providers, I can click on Request Demo and then click on this button here, and that will send an email to SustainIt, and we will have your information, all of your results, and we'll get in touch with you to arrange these demos, and also get in touch with the software vendors as well. And like Joe said, we do have existing relationships with the vendors, and we can kind of handhold you through the process and give you some kind of free consultancy along the way. So that is the process, and that is GoMarketWise. I hope that that all made sense, and if anybody has any questions whatsoever, then please ask it via the chat function within GoToMeeting, or feel free to send us an email afterwards, and I'd be happy to chat through this, and I'm sure that Joe would as well. But Joe, if I go back to you for questions.
Thank you very much, Roy. So Roy's right, it is now time for questions. We've got a little bit of time available. Please use the chat function. If you have anything you want to ask us, you can fire them either to myself, to Roy, and we will go through them. So we've got a couple already, Roy, so I hope you're ready. And I think what we'll probably end up doing is we'll both wade in on these a little bit, so you get to hear from me, I'm afraid, quite a lot. So first question is probably one of the most important ones. How do we help with the demonstrations? So I've talked about it, and I think Roy has very kindly just mentioned it just this moment as well. We do have, unsurprisingly, existing relationships with these vendors. So we do know the right people to talk to. We, as well, spend an awful lot of our time sitting between CSR managers and software vendors in some form or another as a part of our professional working life. So we understand how to translate between the two, for want of a better term. We can help organize demos more quickly. We can help make sure that the demos are targeted effectively for you. And as well, we can help make sure the right questions are asked. There is a certain amount of software demonstrations that does require that we ask the awkward questions, and it's something that we're always very happy to do, and it's something we will have a lot of fun doing. But it's about making sure you get to see the system actually being used as you would use it. And so I think that's one of the key things that we can help with. Roy, I think that probably covers everything from my perspective. You're happy with that answer?
I am, yes. Yeah. Thanks, Joe.
Thanks very much. Okay, so the next one is, no, this one's, there's no simple answer. Okay, so I'm answering the question in my head before we actually answer the question. So the question is, when does GoMarketWise, or where does GoMarketWise fit in the process of finding a new software solution? I mean, from my perspective, there's almost a couple of places this fits. And in terms of both of them, I think it adds a tremendous value. The first one is a very simple one, which is, how do I start thinking about sustainability software? Because GoMarketWise will ask you a bunch of questions right at the start that will get you moving in that direction. Being able to define the size of the company and what kind of data you want to collect and what that data is going to look like and where that data is going to be used are essential questions for the implementation of sustainability software. And if you go straight to a vendor and say, oh, we're interested in this sustainability software, that's brilliant. And they'll tell you exactly what their system does. And that becomes your requirement set. Doing this independently before you talk to the software vendors means that you know what you need the software to do before you see their requirements set. It means that your understanding of the functionality you need isn't driven solely by the functionality that's available in the softwares that you see. You get to set the rules that your system will work to, and it becomes better for it. I think the other place it works quite nicely is a very simple one. We recognize that for some software implementations, it just isn't possible to bring in a consultancy for the length of time that a full analysis and selection piece will work. This gives you the opportunity to move along that journey reasonably painlessly and for no cost. And so that's obviously an important value add. Well, I don't think, do you want to add anything to that one, or are you happy again with what I've said?
No, I'm happy. I think you've covered everything, Jay. Thanks.
That's fair. Well, this one is definitely for you, so don't go anywhere yet. So we've got a question here, which is, how often will you be updating GoMarketWise? As you mentioned, software is evolving very fast. So the question is a fair one. I mean, software is changing quickly, and we do need to stay on top of it. Roy, I know you're kind of the lead with the relationships with the vendors, so do you want to talk a little bit about how that works?
Yeah, of course. So like Joe said originally, the 13 vendors that we have existing relationships with. We've selected them quite carefully throughout the process, and we couldn't start with everybody. So going forward, we do have a plan to onboard further vendors. So we want to make sure that we have a kind of accurate representation of the market to select some smaller vendors, some kind of medium, and all the way up to enterprise level software solutions. So yeah, we do have a monthly onboarding plan, and I'm kind of managing that and the relationship with the vendors. And yeah, we do fully intend to get as many people as possible within the app, because we want it to accurately reflect what's out there. Hopefully that kind of answers your question, Joe.
No, that's fine. I don't think I've got anything to add to that one. So the next one is it's an interesting question. So why and how is GoMarketWise free for us to use? And is it really independent? So this one, I think, again, it plays to your strengths. So I'm going to let you answer that one if you don't mind.
Okay. So yeah, GoMarketWise is free to use to any of the end users. It's also free for software vendors to appear within the app. I mean, we want to be really transparent about how we get paid and how it works. So if a company or a user finds a software through GoMarketWise and they decide to purchase the software as a result of the site, then the software provider would pay us a percentage commission for that introduction, and that doesn't affect the user or the price that the user pays, and it is pretty kind of standard across the industry. So that's how we make our money, not until there is a sale.
Yeah, I think I want to just restate something about this as well, because I think it's important. We, as SustainIt, for the last, I can't believe it's 10 years, for the last 10 years, have worked very hard to maintain our independence. Previously, our relationships with software vendors have been technical, not sales partnerships, and GoMarketWise is an extension of that. So much so that obviously we hope that lots of people will use GoMarketWise, will use it as a channel to finding the right software, and will therefore buy the software that they've selected through GoMarketWise. But the most important thing to be really clear is that our commission is not based on which software. There is no weighting from us. It is uniform across the board. All the software vendors who are in there have signed up to exactly the same terms and conditions. So from our perspective, in terms of that commission, there is no impact on which software is selected. So we are truly independent on that. And we always work to be truly independent in everything we do, because we want our advice to carry as much weight as possible. And so that independence is key to what we do. Hopefully that makes sense. All right, so I've got one last question. I'm just looking at the time as well. We said we'd try and keep this to about 45 minutes, and we crept over. So I'm going to ask one last question, Roy, which is something I know you've been involved in a bit, I've been involved in a bit, which is how did we choose the question sets? So I think if I'll let you start on that one and I'll kind of kick in. How's that sound?
Yeah, that sounds good. So how did we choose the question sets? Well, we had a number of workshops, internal workshops, where we kind of used all of the knowledge that we have within SustainIt. We read a number of kind of industry reports from various people. We did lots of research about kind of what's important when selecting a piece of software. We gathered information from speaking to our clients, and kind of going back over the past 9 years, really, kind of drawing on the experience that we've had, and there was lots of trial and error. There were lots of changes, but we hope that we have come to a question set which, like you said earlier, we feel kind of covers the majority of areas from a high level. Obviously there are lots of other questions that need to be asked, but are much more specific and more part of the consultancy piece that would come after GoMarketWise. But yeah, lots of time and lots of energy, but we got there.
We did. I think the important point to mention is that idea that what we've tried to create is questions that add the most value for the least words. We've really worked hard to distill the questions so that we're asking you the bare minimum amount of things, but you're actually giving us the maximum amount of information by answering those questions. It was, in some places, a little bit of a torturous process, but it's the kind of thing that I really enjoy, so I didn't mind it at all. And it involved an awful lot of writing on whiteboards and shouting at each other. But we got to it, and I think we're very proud of the questions we asked, because it does do exactly that. we get as much value as possible from as few a number of questions. And that's why we've asked the questions we have. Right. That is it for questions. That is it for the presentation. I hope it has been useful. I hope it has been entertaining. We are, to go back to right to the start, immensely proud of GoMarketWise. We think that it really adds value. If you're looking at sustainability software, if you're starting down that road and you want to understand what kind of options are out there, it helps you distill your own thinking. It helps you see what kind of options will match what you need. And I think it does it in a very elegant way, which is something we work very hard to do. So I'm very proud of it. I know Roy, who worked much harder than me on it, is very proud of it, and hopefully it will help you along the way. As always, if you have any questions, if you have any comments, if you have any thoughts about what we should talk about next, or what you'd like to see us cover, or if you'd like to talk to us more, then please don't hesitate to get in touch. We love talking to people, I especially so. And hopefully we'll see you soon when we do another one of these webinars. Thank you very much for your time, everybody. Goodbye.